One of the biggest reasons I bought the Lakers was to beat the Celtics. Dr. Jerry Buss said that, and I'm saying this. Welcome to High and Low. Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Basketball Show. This is episode number 100 and Dennis, aka episode number 173. When it comes to the obscure NBA jersey numbers, the defensive demigod Dennis Rodman holds the unified undisputed belt. Actually, speaking of belts, Rodman was definitely punching above his weight class. The man married Carmen Electra and was romantically linked to Madonna. And this was in the 90s when both Carmen Electra and Madonna were the main characters in many a teenage boy's dreams. I think today's comparisons would be,
wait for it!
I think like Ice Spice and Kylie Jenner.
Come on, Jimmy, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Anyway, hey, welcome to the High and Low NBA Show. My name is Ike Amaechi. Around here, we live by a principle governed by the high and low lives of the world, which means we talk about basketball, especially and specifically the NBA, and we talk about it at any time, anywhere, north, south, east, west, high and low. This week on the show, we're jumping back into the business of basketball in honor of NBA legend Magic Johnson buying a piece of a franchise not in the NBA. Magic purchased a 4% stake in the Washington Commanders of the NFL, the National Football League. And the news put me back into the business of sports thought bubble, especially franchise ownership. Michael Jordan recently sold his majority stake in the Charlotte Hornets. I talked about that situation back on episode 162. And I also broached the subject of NBA team ownership on episode 136 when Matt Ishbia bought the Suns. I know Magic isn't an NBA team owner, but he did have a small stake in the Lakers of Los Angeles once upon a time. He's been a part of this exclusive assemblage of capitalists, and I want to shine the spotlight on this cabal and what it takes to become a part of the NBA's true elite. You know, I'll keep this high level. Yeah, it's more of a gateway conversation about official processes, right? I mean, I could dive deeper into the depravity and the ritualistic requirements of NBA ownership. I can do that at a later date, but I would need Adam Silver to look the other way before I share all that information. Anyway, before I get to that, I also have to answer a great question from a listener, very Top Boy related, which is very topical.
And you're with me like sixth form Top Boy. If it weren't for me, who would even look at you?
Hope you watched Top Boy over the weekend. And if you haven't, please do, man. Anyway, stay tuned for all that. Before we lock in, let me check in.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Yes, he is. And listeners, thank you for joining me for another installment of the High and Low NBA Show. Another week, another episode, more NBA. So, of course, more High and Low. This week in NBA history, a GOAT blew into the Windy City. On September 12th, 1984, the Chicago Bulls inked the contract with their first-round draft pick, Michael Jordan. The basketball world was about to witness the birth of a legend, although no one could foresee the enormity of his impact at that moment. Jordan entered the NBA with great anticipation, a young athlete bursting with potential. His rookie contract signed on that fateful day. It was a 7-year deal worth $6.3 million.
Is that all?
With a base salary of $455,000 plus a $35,000 signing bonus for his rookie season. When asked by media about how he was feeling, the young rookie, young MJ, said, "It's good to be in Chicago, an athletic city where all the teams are starting to win. If the Cubs, Bears, White Sox can do it, why not the Bulls?" Yes, he called Chicago an athletic city. And little did the Bulls, or anyone else for that matter, realize that this would be one of the most underpaid contracts in the history of professional sports. Jordan was an absolute force, bent on making good on that statement and turning the Bulls into a winner. The Bulls quickly course-corrected and did right by their young superstar. They voided out the final 3 years of his rookie contract. in favor of an 8-year, $25.7 million deal. That contract would only last about 5 seasons before Jordan's first retirement in 1993. Fun fact, the first number 23 jersey the Bulls gave to Jordan in 1984, in that rookie season, that sold for more than $81,000 in an auction in July of 2019. Another fun fact, the jersey worn by Jordan during Game 1 of the 1998 NBA Finals sold for $10.1 million at a Sotheby's auction, the most expensive piece of game-worn sports memorabilia ever purchased at an auction. Yeah, $10.1 million. Oh, shoot, wow. Anyway, that was a little something for the NBA history nerds. Things are certainly happening in the NBA today, so let's talk about it.
Let's talk about something important.
I have a listener question. As I mentioned before, it's from Logan in New Haven, Connecticut. Shout out to you, Logan, and shout out to all of our listeners in Connecticut. Logan's question is this. I know this isn't an NBA-related question, but I'm pretty sure you watch Top Boy. You're right. Yes, I do. Just finished watching the final season on Netflix. Don't worry, I won't spoil it, but I have a question for you. Looking at all the people that have been on High and Low, what Top Boy characters would you compare yourselves to? It's a great question. Love this question, Logan. Appreciate it. Thank you for that. I honestly need to bring this to the rest of the group next week because I know they would love to answer this question. But let me quickly drop some names, honestly, because I'm in a Top Boy state of mind right now, just fresh off the final season. I don't know if you remember Modi. He ran the London Fields gang before Jamie did. A bit volatile, unpredictable. That's Hugo. That's Hugo the Sheik.
It's called hentai, and it's art.
Sean Khan, I'll compare him to Jack. Jack's one of the smartest characters in the series. She does what she needs to do just to hold it down for Sully and Duchesne while keeping the rest of the soldiers in line. Jack could easily run her own empire if she decided to. That's Sean. I'm not, and hey. Mitch Orsatti, Sir Mitch of House Orsatti, he's Sully. Not because I think he's a psychopath. He's not. But because Mitch gives "you don't know me" vibes to the highest degree, which describes Sully's movements to a T. If you make the mistake of thinking you know them, you'll quickly find out you don't know a thing about anything, especially them.
Them, ooh, bruv. None of them left.
And I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll wrap up with Steven, who would probably want to be compared to Sully or Duchesne. But Steven, honestly, man, Steven gets the Johnny McGee Award. Johnny's a new character introduced in season 3, played by Barry Keoghan, and he lives it up. He's smart, he knows what he's doing, and it's hard to catch him slipping. Steven's the same way. You could try to catch Steven off guard, but he always has something for you. Always has something waiting. Anyway, great question, Logan. Love it. Much appreciated. And a quick reminder to High and Low Lives, if you want to leave a question for us to answer on the show, send your DM to us on TikTok and More High and Low. You can send a DM to us on Instagram at Get High and Low. And as per usual, put those links in the show notes. It makes it easier for you to find it. So, hey, man, time for me to take a quick break. But when I come back, I'm going to talk about NBA ownership.
Because here it comes.
Here it comes.
This is High and Low.
This moment is brought to you by High and Low listeners. This week on the High and Low NBA show, listeners were asked to share the top 5 things Canadian basketball fans should do after Canada beat Team USA in the FIBA World Cup. We heard from Manish in Toronto, Canada. Manish shared his list starting with number 5. Give Dylan Brooks a lifetime supply of double-double coffees from Tim Hortons.
Absolutely not.
If you know, you know. Number 4 is to stay humble because the job ain't done. Shout out to Kobe.
Job's not finished. Job finished? I don't think so.
Number 3 is to say sorry for being so good because it's the Canadian way to be nice and unnecessarily apologetic.
Completely not true.
Number 2 is to send copies of the World Cup bracket to all their American friends.
What did you say?
And the number 1 thing for Canadians to do after defeating the Americans in the World Cup is to wear nothing but bronze when crossing the border until next year's Olympics. Woo! Thank you for sharing your top 5. Let's get back to the High and Low NBA show.
And we're back. I'm Ike Amaechi, and this is the High and Low NBA show. It's no secret, I'm fascinated by the machinations of the NBA, the business behind the product we enjoy, and the NBA's governors, the franchise owners, are the embodiment of the economics of the game. You know, I mentioned Magic Johnson's recent endeavor into NFL ownership, not as a principal owner, but as a minority stakeholder. The news really inspired me to dive into this conversation about the concept of NBA franchise ownership and the steps involved in buying an NBA team. NBA franchise ownership, it's a coveted and prestigious venture, really, that requires a substantial financial commitment and a rigorous approval process. I mean, you thought that buying a house was difficult. Well, try this. It's an exclusive club of billionaires and multi-millionaires. Anyone can make millions, but only a select group can invest those millions in a sports franchise, specifically any of the 30 teams in the NBA. These franchises represent some of the most iconic and valuable sports organizations globally, and their ownership is associated with significant influence and financial investment. Owning an NBA team provides individuals or groups with opportunity to become stakeholders in a high-profile sports league, generate revenue, and participate in the growth of the NBA as a brand. But how would an individual go about purchasing a stake in an NBA team outside of secretly being indoctrinated into some secretive and reticent world of the global elite?
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
But what's the process? The process of buying an NBA team can be described as a complex and multifaceted journey with a lot of critical steps. First of all, there's the expression of interest, an EOI.
I know I'm interested.
Prospective buyers first express their interest in purchasing an NBA team. This is typically done privately, and the interested party may engage in discussions with the current team owner or the NBA itself. This is the first stage of courtship. Making eye contact from across the bar and letting them know you're noticing them noticing you, that sort of thing, right? The next step is the evaluation of financial capacity.
And just how much money do you have, young man?
You know, the NBA thoroughly evaluates the financial capability of the potential buyer or ownership group. This involves really like scrutinizing the financial assets, the liabilities, and just the overall financial health of the buyers or buyer to ensure they can meet the financial obligations associated with team ownership. You would have to open up all the books, no financial stone left unturned, similar to what a bank would do when a person wants to buy a home or a property, but much larger. The next step is the negotiation and the agreement.
Where did he learn to negotiate like that?
So once the NBA is satisfied with the buyer's financial standing, negotiations between the buyer and the current team owner commence. These negotiations involve the purchase price, determining ownership stake percentage, and other terms of the transaction. At this point, the parties have to reach a mutually agreeable deal. And then you move to the next step, which is the approval by NBA owners, right? The proposed sale must be approved by the majority of the existing NBA team owner cadre. This step is crucial in maintaining the league's integrity and ensuring that new owners meet the league's standards and expectations. In other words, they need to subjectively confirm that you're one of them. Wink, wink, secret handshake.
If you are not one of us, you are one of them.
The next step after that is league approval. The sale is then subject to approval by the NBA league office. This approval process involves assessing the potential owner's character, the ethics, and overall suitability for owning an NBA team. Again, dancing and prancing in the land of subjectivity where it's not based on objective terms at all, but whether they think you're good enough to walk amongst giants, basically. And then after that, it's transfer of ownership. So once all approvals are obtained, the transfer of ownership is finalized. The new owner or owners assume control of the franchise, taking over all operational and financial responsibility. The keys to the Lambo are handed over to you. Smack dab right in the middle of your palm. Beautiful feeling. And then we move on to the next step, which is the integration into the league, right? This new ownership group becomes integrated into the NBA community. They attend the league meetings, participate in decision-making processes, and they contribute to the league's growth and development.
Listen, everyone's telling you how lucky you are. Don't screw this up.
It's worth noting that each NBA team may have its unique intricacies and considerations during the ownership transfer process, so not every step may apply in verbatim in every situation, but these are the general foundational steps in the process. Furthermore, the sale of an NBA team often involves a substantial financial commitment, with prices for franchises varying widely based on factors like market size, team success, and overall franchise value. With all that said, NBA franchise ownership represents a significant investment and privilege in the world of professional sports. The process of buying an NBA team requires careful evaluation, financial scrutiny, and approval from both existing team owners and the league itself, ensuring that new owners align with the league's values, vision, and motives, subjectively. Anyway, let me leave it right there. But I do want to get into the types of ownership groups and the types of owners that you do have in the NBA. But I'll do that right after this break. We'll be right back with more High and Low.
All right, you guys, what's next?
And we are back. When it comes to NBA owners, we're familiar with Steve Ballmer, Mark Cuban, Michael Jordan up until a few months ago. But the NBA ownership cadre is a mixed bag. Not all teams have the same ownership structures. In fact, the ownership landscape of the NBA and North American sports in general is a complex web of individuals, corporations, and investment groups. So while the NBA itself does not own the teams, it serves as the governing body that oversees the league's operations and ensures that each franchise operates within its established rules and regulations. As mentioned before, NBA team ownership is a mixed bag, a jumbled consortium of ownership types. And I'm going to quickly break down those categories for you, starting with individual owners. So many NBA teams are owned by individual investors or wealthy individuals who have a passion for basketball and a desire to be involved in the sports industry. These owners often have a significant influence on their respective franchises and are responsible for major decisions related to team operations. Great example of this is Mark Cuban in Dallas. Mark Cuban is a well-known individual owner who has a significant influence on the Mavericks. He purchased the team in 2000, and he's been actively involved in team management and investment in player development and facilities. Michael Jordan was another prime example. Occasionally, former NBA players transition into ownership roles like Michael Jordan did. Occasionally. Actually, let me stop right there. Michael Jordan was the first to jump into principal ownership, but he used his knowledge of the game and industry connections to become involved in team ownership, which is what players do, and they contribute to the league's diversity of ownership backgrounds. MJ was the first. Other former players usually fall into another category of ownership, which I'll get into in a moment. But before I get to that, I want to talk about corporate entities. Some NBA teams are owned by corporations or conglomerates. These entities may have diverse business interests and view team ownership as a strategic investment, leveraging the team's brand and popularity to generate revenue and promote their other ventures. Great example of this is The Lakers, the Buss family. The Lakers of Los Angeles are owned by the Buss family primarily through their ownership of the Buss Family Trust. The Buss family has significant business interests outside of basketball, including real estate, and they have successfully leveraged the Lakers brand for business purposes. Another example would be Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, who own the Toronto Raptors, among other sports franchises, and they're owned by a mix of large Canadian media corporations, specifically Rogers Communications and Bell Canada Enterprises. They're basically the Disney and Comcast of Canada. The next type would be investment groups. Several NBA teams have ownership groups composed of multiple individuals and entities pooling their resources. These groups come together to share the financial burden of team ownership and collectively make decisions regarding the franchise's direction. Great example of this is in Golden State with Joe Lacob and Peter Guber. The Golden State Warriors are owned by a group of investors led by Lacob and Guber. This ownership group came together to purchase the team in 2010, and they've since overseen a period of tremendous success for the franchise. Basically, they oversaw a dynasty. Magic Johnson once owned a small stake in the Lakers. Shaq had a 4% stake in the Sacramento Kings, and Dwayne Wade has a small stake in the Utah Jazz. They're part of investment groups. The next type is public ownership. In some instances, NBA teams are partially owned by the public through the sale of shares in the team, while the majority ownership typically remains with a private entity or individual. Public ownership allows fans to have a stake in the team's success and financial prospects. While not an NBA team, the Green Bay Packers in the NFL are a great example of a sports team with public ownership. The team is owned by the Green Bay Packers, Inc., Incorporated. They're a nonprofit corporation with shares held by thousands of fans. Now, it would be irresponsible of me to wrap this up without saying this. I share all of this information as a service, but most importantly, as motivation for you to reach for the stars, to touch the moon. Why play on the court when you can own the arena around the court? If you grind and you have some extra cash lying around and you're thinking about epic investment opportunities, NBA franchise ownership can be just the thing that puts you over. But you got to recognize the fact that owning an NBA team carries significant importance and impact on so many levels. I have to say that. I really do. Aside from the heavy financial investment, there's the community engagement component, right? NBA teams are deeply ingrained in their local communities. Owners play a pivotal role in community engagement. They support the local charities, they promote the youth basketball programs, and they contribute to the overall well-being of the area they represent. They're also responsible for league growth. The collective ownership of NBA teams contributes to the league's growth and success. Owners participate in league meetings and make decisions regarding rule changes and league initiatives, and they collectively shape the future direction of the association. And there's also player development and success. Owners are responsible for building and maintaining competitive teams. They're responsible for their players. Their players are their investment. A well-supported franchise can attract top talent and achieve success, boosting the league's overall competitiveness and entertainment value. And then finally, really important, social impact. NBA owners have a platform to address social and political issues. Many owners use their influence and resources to support social justice initiatives and advocate for positive change in society. We know that players are the most vocal, but NBA owners are behind that in many cases. So with all that said, players are popular, but owners are powerful. They wield power and significant influence over their respective franchises and the broader basketball community. And that broader basketball community usually dreams of playing in the league when our focus should be on owning the league or just ownership in general. Consider this the starting point on your roadmap to real success, where you're thinking about ownership rather than being an employee.
Why the fuck I can't shoot 3-point shots?
That brings us to the end of this episode of High and Low. I hope you enjoyed this one. Feel free to share your thoughts on this episode, and you can leave a review. Drop a rating in there afterwards. Subscribe to High and Low. Anywhere you find podcasts, make us a part of your weekly routine. You know where to find us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Threads. Once again, music is by Live of the Enjoy Music Group. You can find Live on Twitter and on Instagram at LYVE. Additional music is by Sonny Rockwell of The Goodness. You can't find that guy anywhere. Sound design is by Vonn+Abrahamm. This is a Vonn+Abrahamm podcast, just in case you didn't know. So on behalf of the man them, I'm Ike Amaechi. Thank you for listening to High and Low, and we'll talk to you next week in a bit.